Hi, Ben.
Hi, Carl.
Are we going to
S-
giggle every single time we do that because it's so dumb?
It's, it's so stupid, but yes, I think we're gonna giggle every time. I think that's the signature. Hi, Ben. Hi, Carl. Giggle,
You know,
etc.
I'm okay with that. I think if I start off a conversation from a giggle, I feel like that's a sign it's going to be a good conversation.
It's a very good sign. It's a sign of positive vibes and good energies. Like we need more of that in this world. So let's do
We
that.
do. We do. We really do. Do you want to tee up the topic for today?
Yeah, sure. So we thought it would be a great topic to talk about what makes us actually want to buy a plugin because there's advertisements all the time on Facebook, Instagram. Everyone's trying to sell you their latest plugin, and you know what? They're cheap, but then they add up, and that could be a lot of money. And we're so deep into this career that we probably think twice before buying a plugin, or maybe we don't. I don't know. I want to find out what Carl thinks. But yeah, let's get into it. What actually will stimulate our brain telling us, okay, just go for it, spend the money?
For me, I think right now, the big question that I ask myself is going to be, is this thing going to give me options to achieve something creatively or repair something that I was not able to create or repair before? Right. So I think I have more than enough EQ plugins because I really only ever used like two or three. I have enough compressors, I have enough reverbs, a lot of the more basic things. Like I have more than I'll need, and I really don't even have that many. But when it comes to things like repairing software, like Isotope RX, like every time a new RX comes out, like I get it almost immediately. Um, when I know Soothe is kind of a hot topic, depending on if you like it or love it. I love it, and it has solved so many issues for me. So when there are plugins like that can do things that other plugins can't yet,
Yes.
I love, 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 love that. And if it's something that'll actually do something that's meaningful for me and my music that nothing else can do yet. Like just because it's new doesn't mean that it's going to be useful for me. But if it's something that I don't have any other plugins that can do it, and it's something that and the thing that it does is something that's actually going to make my process either faster or make the outcomes better, then that's really the big thing for me.
Yeah. Um, I want to get into like the marketing, maybe a tiny bit of like what like does anything like actually like tear at your heartstrings in terms of like that. But I guess I'll say for sure. I'll in response to what your prerequisites that you mentioned. We're at a stage I think in the industry where like you don't need another 1176 emulation, right? There's enough of those out there. And so the plugins that are kind of pushing the boundaries are the more interesting ones. So especially as more and more people are working in the box, the Isotope RX is like, man, that's like a no-brainer for me also. I'm using it every day. And that's also an example of a plugin that's using, machine learning to kind of do a better job. And there's a lot more plugins that are coming up these days now with that, especially probably from Isotope and some other plugin companies. Yeah, Soothe is definitely an interesting one, and I use it quite a bit actually. It doesn't always do what I want it to do, but often it does. And there's I'm totally into that genre of plugin to maybe push you over the edge, but I'm still hesitant to buy. I'm not like we were talking about Matt Huber, how he buys every single plugin just to make the workflow easy. I'm definitely not that. I definitely have a workflow and I definitely have tools that I just know intimately and will reach for every single time. However, some things do maybe push me over the edge. So I was thinking about this in a different way. I have a friend named Noam Levenberg who's been on the podcast a couple times, and he just started a plugin company called Safari Pedals. And not just to give him a shout out because he didn't ask me to do this, but what I love about his plugins is that they bring me a new joy when mixing because they're just so fun to use. They're less it's like typical stuff, but done in a way that's super fun and fast. They're like designed like a pedal board, like with a couple, knobs and stuff. And so I think of it almost like similar to like the Sound Toys kind of effects rack, how you could just like, oh, let me grab like I don't know, tremulator and get some tremolo going or something. And so like you just grab one of those plugins and you get some instant vibe and you just tweak it a tiny bit and you're good. And like all of a sudden the track has something going on for it. So kind of like fast, fun, inspirational. That thing might push me over the edge to buy, which I ended up doing.
That's really interesting because I was going to say Safari is one of the companies that I haven't gotten any of the plugins yet, but I always see their ads and it looks like something right up my alley. I just haven't pulled the trigger
Yeah.
yet. So
Yeah.
it's funny that you mentioned them, especially after you talked about the marketing. And there's something about that, I think the playfulness of
Yes.
how they present the plugins that to me, it seems like, my limited knowledge of them, it seems like that playfulness comes out in the plugins themselves.
Yes.
And that's why I love all of the stuff from Freak Show Industries for kind of
Mm.
a very different way. Like they're like weird. If you go to the website freakshowindustries.com,
I'm going right
again, not
now. Freak
go. Oh my
Show.
god, freakshowindustries.com.
Yeah.
It's some weird stuff. Their plugins are just they're the most impractical plugins. They're like they help you make abstract weird stuff, but I found ways to use some of them in my mixes in a very subtle way that is it's so wonderful. This is my favorite thing. Like I love using Mishby, which is designed to completely mangle your sound, right? And I've always been a fan of plugins and using plugins in ways that they're not meant to be used, right? So that could be something when, somebody would use the like the all-in settings, all
Yeah.
buttons in settings, and like really just destroy a sound when it's not really what that was designed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, my favorite thing about using Mishby is that it's designed to mangle the music, but I found a way to use it very subtly. And it actually makes it into probably, no joke, 95% of the songs that I work on.
So like you're using like what
Be,
amazing with a wet dry mix knob kind of thing.
it doesn't have a wet dry mix knob, but I do like. I'll explain in another time
In a
off
more
the record.
technical episode.
Yeah, or if you want to find out about it, just shoot me a message, and I'm happy to nerd out about it. But it's meant to just be like completely like to really just fuck up your sound, and I've found ways to like make it play nice with me. I think plugins like that where there's more like I don't know, there's excitement to using it. I mean, Mishby, there's the user interface literally has like an octopus tentacle on it. And if you mouse over any of the options, it has lore, it's like there's storytelling even in the plugin settings, which I think is just so interesting and unique and inspiring. So there are going to be plugin companies like that make stuff that maybe isn't necessarily solving a problem for me, but there is this inspiration that comes from using them because they're just so different, and it adds. I don't know if it's just in my head, but I don't care if it's just in my head because
Yeah.
it makes me happy.
Amazing. So something that will give you inspiration is definitely a great way to go. Have you ever bought a plugin because somebody just like recommended it and said like you just got to try this? Like, can you think of something that like? Because I'm thinking of one that I still haven't bought that everyone has recommended to me.
Yeah, everybody's talking about Golfos to me,
Right.
and I haven't done that. I don't know. Like honestly, I don't think so, but only because I am not a gearhead by nature, and I don't tend to get into conversations about those kind of specifics. So people just feel like they just feel they don't need to give me recommendations because it's all over my head anyway.
Yeah.
I or I'll be the first person to say, look, I don't know. I have like a handful of plugins that I really love and I use them, but like I don't know shit about what goes on under the hood. So
Yes. Nick
maybe
DeLorenzo can do all that for us.
exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think maybe I scared people into not giving me recommendations.
Yeah, that could be.
Which,
Well, you're newer to like the talking to other people on podcast game than me, and so like I can't even tell you how many people have like said you got to get Saturn, to saturate specific bands or whatever, and I still haven't gotten it. Not because I don't want to, but just because it's hella expensive and just don't get around to it. Like I don't know,
yeah.
I'm busy.
Well, what's the last plugin that you bought that did come from not necessarily a recommendation, but you saw it and you were just like, I need this in my workflow. Like, what was that plugin?
Must have been something on like Black Friday. It might have been those Safari Petals plugins actually, so Noam actually gifted me a couple of the plugins before I had him on my show, and I was like, these just look too fun. I can't like it's a good price on Black Friday. I'm just gonna go for it because it looks like it'll just be a great time to work with them, and it is. It's just like, oh, I'll just pull that up. Let's get like an interesting sound really quickly and move on. So that's kind of like probably the last one where I was just like, let's just go for this. But I don't know. There've been like a lot of like Plugin Alliance plugins that I'm just like, I really want to try that. What's the Acme Motown style compressor or the whatever, a different plugin, different SSL plugin channel strip. Eventually they get to me, but I've been pretty low key over the last year. I would say I haven't bought so many plugins over the last year. Been more flying with what I got. Maybe, yeah. What about you?
I think the last one that I bought was Ozone 11 Advanced, like the full thing. And because I'll be the first one to say, or the first one to admit that I like the AI mastering assistant on there. It's never perfect, but it always makes me aware of things that I have done in the mix, like some tendencies that I have that need addressing. Um, I don't rely on it to fix them for me. That just makes me aware of some of the issues. But what I really, really love about it is it has a couple individual modules that I've started using in my mix a lot. Like the impact module, using that on my percussion bus and like just making things that don't need to be as punchy as the kick and snare, a little less punchy, helps create so much more texture and depth to the mixes, even though it's not exactly what that was meant to be used for, since it is like a mastering plugin.
Right.
But I use a lot of those modules within the mix, like on individual groups or on my buses, on my like instrument groups.
Yeah, I've heard.
But
I'm basically sold on Ozone 11. I haven't pulled the trigger just because I've been trying to save a little money. But it does. I also heard there's like a clarity feature module or something that's
mhm.
supposed to be amazing. I heard about it on the Attack and Release show with Sam Moses and Matt Garber. They kind of like walk through the latest version of Ozone, and it seems great. But I'm also not a mastering engineer, so I haven't felt like justified quite enough to splurge. You know,
Yeah, no,
we're trying to be modest here. You know.
yeah, I can definitely see that. And I know the next plugin I want to get whenever it's finally released, back to Freak Show Industries, who I just love so much. They have a plugin. It's called Dick Smasher, and I don't know anything
Is
about
it
it.
the
It's just
opposite of the sausage fattener? Is that the deal?
I maybe I don't. I never thought about that.
I
Um,
don't.
yeah, but it's like a distortion plugin, which all of their stuff is just so wild. And they announced that it's coming, like, I don't know, maybe like a year ago at this point. And I think it's just a couple guys that do it for, more or less for fun, but it's just like it's an artistic project to make plugins, which I think is phenomenal. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's not out yet. I don't know when it's coming out, but you can guarantee that the moment that I can put Dick Smasher on any track, I
it's
will at least try it.
it's gonna happen. It's interesting how we're like kind of moving in this direction of like boutique plugin, companies. Like I've had guys on the show like Sam Pura and Jesse Ray Ernster and also Noam Levenberg who are just like, all right, let's make our own plugins, and some of them are great. You know what I mean? But Carl, here's another question for you: has there ever been an opportunity, like a sale on a plugin, that was just too stupid to pass up? You just said, I got to do this. I just there's no way I could say no to this price point. And were you happy with your purchase?
Yes, I I got the Brainworks Townhouse compressor when it was on sale for I think $39 or something, and I think it's usually $2.99, something like that. Which says a lot about marketing and profits in the intellectual property world. How
Yes.
something can be $300 and then go on sale for $40. It's so fascinating to me, like
It's the
the price,
entire Waves business
the
model.
entire Waves business model. Yeah, exactly. I don't think I've ever seen a Waves plugin for more than $50. But my point being, like, that was one that I heard good things about somewhere. I don't even remember where I heard about it. It might have been in a podcast or something, or I saw somebody using it and I was interested in it, and I did a demo and loved it, but I didn't love it. I didn't $300 for a
Yeah.
compressor love it, but I definitely $39 for a compressor loved it. And it's been on my mix bus ever since. Like it's phenomenal. I just really
Yeah.
love it. It's super simple,
Yeah.
but that was one that, yeah, when it was $39, I had to say yes.
I love that. I love that compressor also. 'Cause it's like that typical SSL compressor thing, but it's tiny bit punchier. I would say that's kind of the
Yeah.
the vibe. So it depends on the mix. Like if you're going for something punchy all the way, and if you're going for something less punchy, then maybe use the waves or the slate version or something. Um, Amazing. Yeah, I've definitely had some plugin alliance moments. I think one of the eye opening ones I got was the black box when I first bought it at probably for $30 instead of $200 or whatever the usual price is, and getting that saturator and experimenting with that specifically on my mix bus. And now I've kind of taken it earlier down the chain. I'm not using it as much on the actual mix bus, but like just so much depth and that kind of like analogy thing. That was an amazing kind of sale, quote unquote, purchase.
Yeah.
And speaking of waves, so I didn't, you have to whup every time, you know what whupping is with waves. It's like you have to
No.
like upgrade. You have to pay them to upgrade your plugin version or whatever. Do you have any waves plugins anymore?
I think I have like 3 that I use.
Right.
And I
Everybody's
have
got like,
I yeah, and I haven't paid for any updates in a while, so maybe I'm just using super old versions.
yeah. Well, that could be. Everybody's got like 3 waves plugins they can't live without. So because they're like the OG.
What are yours?
Nanny American Reverb, um, maybe R compressor, and one of them is a new one that I bought or that I was kind of like gifted when I whupped. Basically,
Mhm.
when you upgrade, but when I got my new computer with Ventura, OS Ventura, I was like, okay, I can't use these old Waves plugins on that I had on OS Mojave anymore, and I have to finally spend $150 to keep using my plugins for some reason. But when they did that, they kind of like threw in, oh, here's another couple plugins you could choose to buy, and that I got BB Tubes, which I don't know if you've seen ads for, and
Mm-mm.
it's like a super simple sort of saturator. It does like even harmonics and odd harmonics. I'm sure it's like I've heard the algorithm is not so interesting, but it does what you want it to do really quickly, and I use that a lot to kind of here's a great example is like if you're using Soothe and you're kind of like take out a little bit of the body when you've kind of taken out some of the transients to put a little bit more of that body back in, you just add in some even order harmonics with BB tubes. And so that's a plugin that I've kind of am using a lot these days from Waves. And it's one of the 3 that I use a lot, I guess.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I was gonna say I use the Renaissance compressor as well. Mostly for side chaining sometimes. I've been using the Kickstart 2 more
Oh yeah,
often.
they
It
have
just
an
depends if I want. Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, oh no, Kickstart's supposed to be great.
Oh yeah,
There's another plugin from Waves that I'm using all the time. I just remembered Smack Attack.
nice.
That's great.
Yeah, I think yeah, so for the wave stuff I use the Renaissance compressor pretty frequently. I like using that when I'm side chaining the snare drum. But I still use CLA Vox, but just the compressor. I really like the compressor sound on that on lead vocals.
Hmm.
And the vocal writer is another one. Like the CLA Vox and the vocal writer are pretty much on every vocal track for every song that I do as a starting point. Like it just again, it's just like the vocal writer is only doing a very tiny little bit just to rein things in, and it's the compressor just doing a little bit in the CLA Vox. But there's something about it. It just for the style of music that I work on, it just always makes it better, which surprises me because it's a $20 plugin or a $30 plugin from
Yeah.
I don't know 15 years ago, but it works, man. It works.
Yeah.
Everything else on that plugin, I can't stand. Like I really don't like the wideners and like the reverb and stuff. It just doesn't sound good to me whatsoever. But that compressor on there is it's fantastic.
So I guess you'll be whopping also eventually.
Eventually, yeah. But I don't feel bad about whooping those. I've definitely gotten my
Your use out of it.
yeah, my $29 out of it.
Okay. Let's transition into subscriptions because I feel like this is like a touchy subject for a lot of people. Do you remember, like, I think it was this year that Waves decided, now we're just like ripping on Waves. We're giving them praise and then tearing them a new one like a minute later. When they decided to say, you know what, no more wepping, no more owning any of our plugins. You all have to pay for a subscription. And then everyone freaked out, and then they walked it back. Do you remember that?
I remember that, but I don't think it affected me enough to care. I think I don't know if that was also right around when our daughter was born or when
Mm.
we were kind of like in the thick of that. And as far as things that affected my day to day, Waves subscriptions was not high enough on the list to make the
Just went
radar.
right over your head.
Yeah.
All right. So that said, what are your thoughts on the subscription model? Do you avoid it like the plague? Are you kind of into it? What do you think?
I'm into it. I think I have the Slate subscription, and I have and I have the Eventide Ensemble subscription, which I love. There are so many fantastic plugins in the Eventide subscription that nobody talks about or uses, at least not that I know of. I don't really have any friends that use them too, but there's some really, really, really great plugins in there.
Well, now that you mention
Um,
it, Carl,
yeah, no, it's great. Like I use Omnipressor I probably use 15 instances of Omnipressor on most mixes. I just love that so much. The Tricera chorus is really good. The Crush station's really good. The Black Hole reverb is really cool. They just have really, it's really unique, flexible processing, but in ways that I think is a little old school in its presentation, in the sense that they don't make them all visually flashy, and their advertising, their marketing isn't like big and bombastic. It's all just very simple and scientific, which I kind of like. There's something like I feel like when I can get one of those plugins to work for me, not only does it sound incredible, but also I feel smarter for figuring out how to wrangle it.
it's the little things in life, Carl.
Yeah. And I mean, the Slate, I'd say for the Slate bundle, there's really only a handful of plugins that I use in it that makes it worth it for me. And I just haven't done the math to figure out if it makes more sense for me to just buy it outright. But
Right.
if nothing else, it enables me to try some things out before I buy them. Like I think, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if before I bought the townhouse, I wonder if I tried the Plugin Alliance subscription for a month or two and found a couple that I liked. Because I also bought the Mag EQ4. Love the airband
I
on that.
Dude, that thing's amazing. That's like the best top end.
Yeah. So if you're listening and Plugin Alliance never did a subscription and I'm just like misremembering this, I'm going to blame it on not sleeping in 7 months with an infant.
Perfect
So please,
excuse.
yeah. So please don't write any strongly worded letters.
Yeah. We're not endorsed by any of these companies, by the way.
Mm.
Um, we should mention. What I was going to say is, yeah, I also use the Slate bundle a lot, and I've kind of, it's interesting how you said, like, should I have just bought it outright or should I keep paying the rent, so to speak? And that's kind of like the interesting question of like, when's it worth just buying the stuff and when's it worth renting? So for like, you talked about Plugin Alliance, like I've just kind of spent my time waiting for sales on Plugin Alliance plugins and just bought them when I wanted something and it was cheap enough. So that's kind of been my approach to like Plugin Alliance. And with, I think the reason why I didn't buy any Plugin Alliance over the last year was because it wasn't working with my OS. And I finally fixed that. And that was such a major relief. But the Slate one, I'm just like so fully in that wheelhouse now that I don't know how to get out of it. Like, and I like it.
Yeah.
So like I have the virtual mic system. I use that often for tracking. And the like I don't think I could live without their 401 compressor, their VCA compressor. It's just so transparent, does what I need it to do so quickly. And their optical compressor, the fancy blue one, is also just like it's like always getting used on like bass and vocals and stuff. So I'm just kind of like deep in that world, and I haven't done the math, but maybe I should. I don't know. What do you think about like doing research or just keep paying and enjoy? Like I don't know. What do you think about that?
I, the responsible adult in me should say, I should do the math. I should run the numbers and figure it out, do a cost benefit analysis. But the underslept, exhausted father of two is like, I don't want to think. I
Yeah,
don't want to. I don't
it's
want to. I don't want to do that math right now. I'll just pay them my $15 or whatever it is.
yeah, it's like $150 a year, which kind of is I don't know one uh fab filter plugin for an entire year of all of everything they have. It's not a bad deal.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't really use much of the Slate stuff anymore. Now I might actually do the math on that one because I know I use the Verb Suite and the D16 repeater, and sometimes Anna 2, but I don't think I use anything else. I was using the virtual mix rack for a while, and then I just kind of stopped. I don't know why. I just stopped being compelled to go to that plugin folder, I guess.
I really like the ease of use on it, and it's for me it just works a lot. Like the compressor into the gate, or it just like popping a quick EQ after compressing a drum, like bam, like in and out. I like the ease of use and the speed, and that I think that's kind of why I keep using the Slate plugins. Um, and they sound good. Like I've never gone the UA train. Like I don't know if UA plugins sound better. People have told me they are. This is another example of a subscription model that Spark has been like advertising to me, sending me emails, or UA has done it with regards to Spark, and I just like haven't jumped on it because I'm just like I have so many plugins. I'm just not compelled to sign up for a subscription model of emulations. I don't know. Am I missing something?
I don't know if you're missing anything necessarily. The thing I wish that Spark had is that I do have a bunch of UAD plugins that I bought for my Apollo, and one of the things I really wish that they had was just a few more of the hardware version plugins available in the Spark, because then I wouldn't need my I could do mixed revisions and things without having to be near my desk. But from a business perspective, that's probably exactly why there are certain plugins that they're not including in there, because they still want people to buy the hardware. They still want people to be tethered down, and I don't necessarily blame them for that. And if anything, I'm just thankful that there are some plugins that I can use um, just on my computer now instead of needing to be plugged into my interface all the time. But I don't know how to transition into this, but I want to get into the juicy stuff and find out, like, what are the plugins that you spent money on and you were just completely disappointed with, or you thought you convinced yourself that you were gonna use it enough to justify paying for it, but then you realized, wow, this either is a one trick pony or is just too, I don't know, glitchy, or just
Mm,
wasn't doing. It was always like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Like, what were those
yeah.
plugins that you've experienced over the years that just don't make the cut?
What's not making the cut? Man, I don't even know.
And maybe there are none. That's
No,
okay too.
there definitely are. I'm just like I can't even think of what they are. I think I still use it. The sketch cassette is a really dope plugin, but it was like it had a couple moments where it like blasted some random noise out of my speaker. Like there was like a glitch or something, but actually it might have been my RME interface in retrospect. Um, but I still use it, and now things are running smoothly. Um, Maybe I should just cut that part. Hold on. I think at one point I bought too many of the Plugin Alliance channel strips, and the truth is I don't need all of them. And I was just like trying them all out, and like I think the Neve one kind of was the most disappointing because it didn't really add so much flavor. Um, and the SSL E was nice, but once I got the J, I kind of stopped using the E. So there's like plugins that are just sitting in my, drawer, so to speak, that just don't even get opened anymore. Um,
But that was more of like being, I don't want to say replaced, but almost like you found something that did it better. I'm talking about something that just flat out
Sucked.
disappointed you. Yeah.
Flat out sucked. I don't know. Maybe you start, and I'll think if I can. If I let me give me a minute to think about something that maybe just totally disappointed me.
I will say for me, it was Melodyne Essential.
Really?
Because I'm not sure how well, yeah, so Melodyne Essential was a complete waste for me because I first used Melodyne years ago at a local studio, and they had one of the fuller versions, and it was amazing, and I loved it, and I knew that that was going to be something that would level up my production, and just helping in the mixing stage too. If somebody sends me a project and there's a couple of notes that just need a little bit of fine tuning, um, that was great. And I thought, okay, I'm not really tracking bands, I'm just mixing. And even when I was doing more production, I was always sending the vocals out to an editor because I just didn't enjoy that process. So there was really no need for me to get anything, high octane. But I thought, okay, well, there's a version that's like $99. I'm going to get that. That'll be able to do the things that I need to do. So I buy it like an idiot without trying it. And basically, it just doesn't do the things that I needed. The things that I really loved Melodyne for were just out of reach of the capabilities of that bottom tier, like entry
Mm.
level version.
What does the bottom tier version of Melodyne not have? That's say like Studio, I think, which is the top tier has.
Yeah, well, so I have Assistant now, like the medium one, or like the one that's like, I don't know, $250, something like that. I forget the specific things that it was missing, but there were parts of it, like some of the pitch sensor control and the modulation, and just some of the things that I thought were the basic fundamental things that Melodyne did, but apparently not. It just
Mm.
didn't. It had almost enough. It had enough functionality for me to think that it was going to be useful, but not enough functionality for it to actually be useful. So then I just felt like I wasted $100 because it didn't do anything
Mm.
really better than Flex Pitch could have done, and that says something.
Wow, I was
So
surprised about that.
yeah, so I think I might have had that version for, I don't know, 2 days before I just said screw it and upgraded
Upgraded.
to the middle one. And I use it all the time and I love it. It's not Melodyne's fault. I think it was a combination of me not being fully aware of what functions were going to be missing in that version. And also maybe a little bit of me. Yeah, I'll take all the blame and just say that I thought it was going to be more functional than it was. And
Yeah.
I was not necessarily mad at the plugin, but mad at myself. But also, I just feel like that entry level of the plugin doesn't do enough to justify being $100. Like it wasn't $100 functional, in my opinion. Like if that was, how Ozone Elements is, $50 or whatever, or $30, whatever they do, and it's like some of the basic things, but it's a very
Oh, that's like
use,
I was about to say that's like the $50 you want to spend.
that's the $50 you want to spend.
Yes.
And I use like Ozone 9 Elements for a while, and it wasn't until 11 that I finally just like saw the value in getting the whole kit and caboodle. But with the Melodyne, if that essential version was $50 or $40, then yeah, I would have felt like, okay, I got my money's worth. I just felt like I needed the next tier up to be able to do the things that I felt were fairly basic.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I don't know if I have a similar experience, but I'm currently struggling with Melodyne just not working as well as it used to in like the newer OSs, and I don't know why that is. Like I'm fully updated. I'm on OS Ventura, which is like old already, you know? It's
Are
just
you
not
are you M1 or M2?
M1.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. They used to like automatically name the tracks. Doesn't do that. Can't figure out how to undo that. when it does the transfer, it like does the wrong algorithm. So
For me, a lot of
I
times,
defaulted it to melodic, and instead of like just having to redo, like, why does this melody look like a percussion to you,
yeah,
kind of thing. So I don't know. I'm finding Melodyne just got like super buggy in the later OSs. So I'm hoping that maybe Salamoni will listen to this and do something about it, because it's a plugin that when you need it,
yeah. Or maybe there's something else that does similar things as well that I just am not familiar with it. I feel like,
Yeah. I think there's like a
uh,
revoice or something. I haven't tried it.
yeah, I think Synchro Arts has something. I think, not Ceremony, Antares, I think, has a version of Autotune that can do that kind of stuff. And maybe it's time to look elsewhere. I don't know. I haven't
Ah,
used any of the other ones personally.
yeah. I haven't used that. But you know what? I use the Slate auto tuner a bunch because it's in the package and it works really well. So I got that for auto tune, and I've got the Celemony for the manual stuff when I need to go
Yeah.
into the nitty gritty. Yeah, Melodyne is just so flexible. I don't know how I would use anything else.
Yeah. It would take a lot. It would take a lot for me it would take a lot of convincing to show me that something is better than that for what I do. But at the same time, there's room for improvement.
Yeah. What I want to do is open up like my plugin thing inside of my DAW, but I'm recording, so I don't think I can do that right now. But there's definitely some horror stories uh, in the past that I'm just not thinking about right now. But I think my horror stories are less what I bought rather than me, having a bigger, your eyes are bigger than your stomach kind of thing. Like when you just put so many things on your plate and then you just don't even get to it all. I think this is something I want to get to also, is just like just functionality and ease of use and just like workflow. Like at the end of the day, we're using the plugins we use because we're used to using them and we know them well. It's like this is our toolkit, this is my hammer. I know exactly how hard to hit, in the center of the nail or whatever it is. Like eventually you kind of like, I don't know why it gets pared down, and probably we could always use more time to experiment, but we don't. When you're working on a mix, you're not really experimenting. You're working and you're
I,
just like
I am. I'm always experimenting.
with plugins specifically.
Oh, I thought you meant like artistically. And I was
No,
like,
no, no,
oh,
no.
no, gotcha. Okay. I was like, yo, yeah, I'm always experimenting with my mixes. But no, you mean like
No, no, meaning
specifically
like
like
I'm not gonna
trying.
be like,
Yeah.
sorry, let me explain. I'm not gonna be like, I bought that reverb a couple months ago. Let me try that out on this song just cause I want to see. Like no, like I know what reverbs I'm gonna mess around with to find the kind of sound that I'm looking for. It's like that's not usually the time to try out a bunch of plugins you just bought when you're actually working on a mix or you're actually working. There's like, I feel like there's play time to mess around with things, and then when it's work time, sure, you're experimenting with different things, and you're messing around with different, maybe artistic or sonic ideas, but it's not necessarily a play box of like, let's just see what plugins I happen to have available right now.
Yeah.
And so I think like when you're doing this, like you're just reaching for the things are going to work, and how to use them to get the thing in your head across. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think when you are in the mix mode and when you're mixing and you're using plugins that you're familiar with to go into uncharted sonic territory, you stay in the flow more
Yes,
because
exactly.
you're not thinking about the plugins, you're not thinking about the functionality or the what the different buttons are labeled. You're just seeing, is this getting me closer to the sonic idea that I have or is it not? Whereas when you're trying a new plugin, for me that always pulls me out of creative mode because it pulls me into technical understanding and
Yeah,
kind of exploring too deep in the weeds for me to also be emotionally creative in that moment. So you're right. Yeah, I think when I'm in a like production stage, then I think that's where I can go into a new plugin that I've never used and
right,
experiment. And I can kind of like, I don't know, I can harness that lack of knowledge in a way to create something totally new.
right. There's
But
that like
it's a
naive genius thing, when you're like,
yeah,
yeah, I love that.
but it's a very different mindset than when I'm in the zone, and I'm looking for a way to execute on a sonic idea that I have. In that situation, I want
Yes.
to use the tools that I know what they're going to do, which I think would be a really good segue into our next episode if we want to leave it on a cliffhanger. Because I want to talk to you. I know this wasn't what we talked about, but, and we can cut this out if you disagree with me, but I would love to talk to you about templates and our thought process on using templates. Because I feel like that's a really, it means different things to different people. And when it comes to using the tools that you're familiar with, I would love to have a conversation about how we philosophically approach our templates and how do we use them? What do we have in them?
Okay. I'm down to talk about templates for sure. I had one thing I wanted to ask you if you do
Okay.
before we leave on that cliffhanger. What I wanted to ask you is, do you do this? When I buy new plugins, what I often do is I'll open up a new session with like nothing and I'll just start to build a beat and make like some sort of basic production as like a inspiration to try out and mangle with new plugins. Is this something that you do or is this just something that I do? Am I a weirdo?
I don't think you're a weirdo, but that's not what I do. I think for me, the thing that triggers me into just finally getting my wallet out and buying a plugin is because I'm up against a problem I'm trying to solve in a project.
Love
And
that.
I'm like, okay, I think this plugin might help me to fix that. So if I do end up buying a plugin, it's usually, okay, I'm in the middle of a mix and I'm upgrading to this new thing because I think that's going to be what I need for this song. So it's less about starting with a sandbox of an idea and more of a, okay, let's cross our fingers and hope that this actually does solve the problem that I'm up against. Because if it does, then that saves me a lot of time on the mix and a lot of heartache on the mix. In which case, most plugins are going to pay for themselves almost instantly
I
if
love that.
it's helping me get through that mix faster. So that's I don't think you're a weird. I mean, I think you're a weirdo for unrelated reasons, but I think I would be surprised if you're the only person that has that approach of just going into a sandbox of a blank session, dropping in some splice loops or whatever, and experimenting with the new plugin that you get.
Yeah. All right. Well, they're, to each their own. But I like that. I really like that approach of like, I'm so desperate for a tool to help me get through this that I guess it's worth the money. So let's go. I
Yeah,
think, I don't know if we have a conclusion about the subscription model, but I guess to be continued.
yeah. I'm sure our opinions are going to change as companies constantly try to figure out how to get more money out of us.
I mean, I think that's something that we're going to see a lot of as the years go on. Just as like, okay, now we're paying for the Zoom subscription, you're paying for a Calendly subscription, you're paying for your Splice subscription, right? Like, it's just going to add up to a point where you just kind of have to. At some point, you have to like pare down. Otherwise, you're just spending thousands of dollars every month on all these
Yeah,
things. So
and I think that's
I think you have to choose wisely. I guess at the
yeah,
very least.
because the danger is in getting familiar with too many of the plugins. I think the blessing and the curse of having the subscriptions is that you have all of these tools at your fingertips. And if you use all 30 plugins for 15 bucks a month, that's awesome, and you're getting a really great deal. But if that model changes or the price changes or what plugins are included changes, you could really be screwed if you're locked into using all of those plugins and suddenly they're not accessible anymore. Like if it's maybe too expensive or what, and having to pulling up old sessions that used plugins that you don't have a subscription for anymore
Right.
is always such a frustrating feeling when you're like, ah, crap, I have to get that for another month just to be able to bounce this file that was my fault. Like I screwed something up and I didn't catch it, in a mix stem 6 months ago. And now I have to go back and pay an extra 15 bucks or whatever it is. It almost becomes like a fine that you have to
Yeah.
pay.
Parking ticket.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, keep that in mind as you're thinking about paying for subscriptions and buying new plugins. Well, Carl, this has been super fun.
Yeah. Thanks for getting nerdy with me. I haven't gotten nerdy about plugins on a podcast, I think, ever.
I know we
I just don't.
got so specific.
Yeah, this is very, very new to me. I feel, I don't know, all tingly. I don't usually talk about
Yeah,
gear.
this is deeper than I usually go with the plugins also. So, but now people kind of know what we're working with and what we're thinking about when we're buying plugins, and you know, let us know if you like this episode, if there's any plugins that we should have railed on but we didn't, or that we did rail on but we shouldn't. The other way around. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like if anybody has a strong opinion about our opinions, it doesn't matter how you phrase it, they're going to let us know.
Yeah, so let us know. We're available. You can reach out on Instagram to either of us.
Yeah. If you say nice things, we'll respond. If you say mean things, we'll ignore you.
Holler at your boys, as they say.
Exactly. No one says that.
No one says that.
Nobody says that. I don't say that.
Okay, we won't say that anymore. Bye, Carl.
Bye, Ben.